Thank you, Dimple. Good morning, all of you. It's very wonderful to see such a great gathering on the morning of a weekend. I am really thankful to all the organizing bodies here, beginning with IIMnetWORK, where work is written in capital. Work is very important. And then, of course, invite my guest, which is an enterprise by IIM students, alums now, of course, no longer students. And we have Advantage India mission, which is based on the book itself. And of course, HarperCollins is there, and all the other partners, my friends Vinny, Rakesh, Vivek, and Akshay, and all of you. Some of whom are Kaushalen is here, who's my senior. I never met him in college, but it's good to see him. We heard him. I only saw him on television, and never saw him in college. That does not mean you're not attending college. That's okay. So wonderful, great to meet all of you, and it's wonderful that we are remembering the icon of modern India, the icon of youth. And does not depend on what age you are in. If you are thinking like a young man, you are a youth. That's what Dr. Kalam used to call. And I assume that because all of you are here, all of you are the youth of this country. And here's the icon of our generation. India got independence in 1947, but India learned self-reliance through a long, painful process throughout 1970s, 80s, 90s, even in the 2000s. And it learned a painful lesson of how to become a self-reliant country. And through that painful lesson and painful journey of self-reliance, giving us confidence, giving us care, giving us the faith that we can do it, giving us the faith and the belief that I can do it, we can do it, and India will do it, was none other than our former president and forever people's president, Dr. A.P.J. Abdul Kalam. The story, as Vinny was telling, of a boat repairer's son, not even a boatman's son, boat repairer's son, used to repair other people's boat. His son, born in one faith, in a city which is holy to another faith, was educated in a third faith, colleges belonging to another faith, and hence imbibing from all kinds of faiths, all kinds of regions, all kinds of languages, who read all kinds of scriptures, and yet became a scientist. And as many call, a saint and a scientist. A man who was a missile man, but also a smile man. Have you seen that? Everlasting, always, he makes you smile. I think we are here to remember his contribution, or not just remember his contribution. And as I always say, don't just remember Dr. Kalam, don't read him. Of course you should read him. Of course you should remember him. But not just that, become Kalam. Become a Kalam. That's more important. And becoming a Kalam doesn't mean 24/7 become a Kalam. That might be very difficult for you. Not everybody has that variables going in their life, but you can become a Kalam 2 hours a week, 3 hours a week. Take half a Sunday off to become a Kalam. And if all of us decide to become a Kalam for half a Sunday, we'll change this country. And we'll change this country with the whole Vision 2020. And I'm sure somebody's going to ask me this question, will 2020 happen? Of course it'll happen. It'll happen before 2020. But decide to become a Kalam first. Now friends, of course we'll talk a lot about Dr. Kalam. Already some of you I've met, and we'll keep meeting throughout the day. I also want to, since we are here to discuss about Advantage India, we have an agenda. I want to discuss something about not just the book, but also the context in which we find ourselves. Think about it. The world is moving faster than ever before. Very generic statement to make, everybody knows it. Right? We all know the world is moving faster than ever before. Things are changing. We have to, I was, the other day, 3 days back, I was giving a lecture at IIM Indore. And I told them, look, you guys are still in, and they're the IPM batch, the 5-year batch. And they were in the third year. And I said, look, the world will not remember you for you. You'll not get anything for what you know. Knowledge is not important. And that's controversial in front of professors, right? Knowledge is not important. What's important is the ability to learn. Unlearn, relearn. Unlearn, relearn. That's what life is. This is the new context of India, and a country like India with so many young people sitting right here, very intellectual, elite, high cerebral young people. We are in the best position to harness this new world order, which has nothing to do with resources, nothing at all to do with resources, nothing at all to do with even what you know. It's got to do with the fact that you're an agile learner. You learn fast. Sometimes you forget fast, and you learn again. And I was trying to do some math on this, and I know many of you from either engineers or IIM background, so you love some mathematics. And I'll tell you how fast we're moving. And to set things in context, let us assume that the humans began, we humans, we started our journey as a species 100 years back, 1 century. We've been on this planet for 2 lakh years, 200,000 years, 200,000, not a lot actually, not even a million years, one fifth of a million, that's 200,000 years. But if I were to condense this 200,000 years into 100 years, into one single century, from 0 to 100, think about how fast we have moved. So if we lived only for 100 years as a species, for 50 years, we were without fire. We had no fire, we did not know how to light, how to rub 2 stones and make fire. For 50 years, we were without fire, completely at the mercy of even the smallest of animals. For 70 years, it's only the last 30 years that we invented something called the wheel. The wheel. Only 30 years ago came. For 70 years, we did not have the wheel. 30 years ago, the wheel came. And that's around the period when we started moving out of Africa. We moved out of Africa, our first continent, our continent of birth. The first chariots, the actual implication of the wheel actually came 2.5 years ago. So we had the wheel to roll stuff, but we didn't know what to do with it. So 2.5 years ago, we made chariots. 2 years ago, we found, oh no, the earth is round. It's not flat. 2 years ago. 3 months ago, some wacky guy went out on a journey and found America, thinking to find India, and ended up finding America. 3 months ago, Columbus. 22 days, 3 weeks, 22 days ago, car was invented. 18 days ago, somebody started flying. Wright brothers. 9 days ago, just about a week, there was a guy who landed on the moon. 36 hours ago, there's something called Pathfinder, which landed on Mars. Internet is only 3 days ago, mobile phones 2 days ago, and electricity itself is only a month ago. We've moved in the last 4 weeks of our existence. We've got so much. That's how human race is moving. And human race is moving faster and faster with given time. For 192,000 years of our existence, we moved at an average speed of 4 kilometers an hour. We used to walk 4 kilometers an hour. Out of the 2 lakh years, 192,000 years ago, our average speed was 4 kilometers an hour. Then we got hold of an animal called the horse. And then our speed increased to 40 kilometers an hour. It remained an average speed of 40 kilometers an hour until we reached 400 kilometers an hour in the year 1920 with the flight. In fact, much after, 10 years after the flight, we reached a speed of 400. This 400 became 4,000 when in 1945, the Germans invented something called the V2 rockets, with which they basically bombed London. But nevertheless, we reached the speed of 4,000 in 1945. 20 years after that, we crossed 40,000 kilometers an hour, breaking the escape velocity and reaching into space. Think about it. Till the start of this century, last century rather, we were at 40 kilometers an hour. That was the best you can go, fastest you can go. You could not ride a tiger. You could only ride a horse. 40 kilometers an hour was all you could go. By the end of the last century, this 40 kilometer became 40,000 kilometers. The world is poised for a change. And where does India stand? Where lies our advantage? The idea of this book is to find and discover those advantages. And of course, those challenges which we need to sort out. I was just talking to someone and we were talking about the Chennai flood. And think about it. India's biggest advantage till 1857, the first war of independence, till that point was India's water bodies. India's greatest challenge today is the absence of those very same water bodies. And what happened in the middle, and I was telling this story to someone, was an institution called the PWD. Nobody's from PWD here, right? Okay, thankfully. But PWD, which was a British government creation in the year 1857-58, nationalized, or whatever nationalized meant with the empire, imperialized water bodies of India, which till then were private owned, private or community owned. And it became, everything was under PWD. PWD will take care of everything. And nobody owns a thing. And when people don't own things, they don't take care of them. Basic math. And that was the end of India's water bodies. And we see it today. It's become the opportunity of yesterday, is a challenge of today, and we have to make it back into an advantage in the years to come. The other day I was talking to the Science Forum in Qatar, and we were trying to discover what are the elements which will shape the future, the next 10 years, 15 years, 30 years, 70 years, 100 years. Because that was like Dr. Kalam would talk. He would talk 100 years in future. And we identified 4 key areas, and I'm sure you can find more. The first one is what we are already seeing, and that is information, connected information. Everything will be connected to everything. The internet of everything. Where your phone, your pen, your notebook, your washing machine, your mixer grinder, your refrigerator, maybe your spectacles, not far away, Google spectacles, everything will be connected. And in that information age, how will countries and societies poise themselves? What are the unique advantages in that information age? Think about it. An average American office worker generates 5,000 megabytes of data a day. I'm not messing up the numbers. 5,000 megabytes of data a day. That's 5 gigabytes of data a day per worker. And we are far away. And this includes YouTube. Which basically means they watch a lot of YouTube in office hours. Not a good thing. But think about it. That's the amount of data which is being created. Think about it. The other day, we were in Edinburgh in 2014, Dr. Kalam and myself, and we saw this amazing thing which you now, I'm sure, have heard of. It's called Li-Fi. Light fidelity. Have you heard of it? The bulb which will give you internet besides light. So I met Professor Haas there, who is in University of Edinburgh. And he showed us how it works. And it works beautifully, totally works. And his vision, which you would now read in the newspapers 1 year later, and even then he was telling, my vision is to create these bulbs should give you internet. And my father tells me, and he was from eastern Uttar Pradesh, no power. He said, a good student. He said, when I was a child, there was no power, there was no electricity, there was no light. So he said, I used to take my notebook and go under the street lamp to study, to get the light, study. I'm sure my children will now take their iPad, go under the same street lamp and get internet. This is how the world is changing. This is how the information age is already changing us and shaping us. The second thing which will change, and which is very important for us to poise, is the age of artificial intelligence and robotics. Personally, I've seen Robot World Cup. I don't know whether you've heard of it. But go on the net, check Robo Cup. Robots playing football. And there's a World Cup to it. I saw the winning team. Plays well. Artificial intelligence is the next in thing, whether you like it or not, whether you watch too much of Terminator or not. It does not matter. Personally, I don't believe they'll take over. But artificial intelligence is the in thing. And things are shifting very fast. Robotics is shifting. The entire dimension will shift. We are resisting it. There will be a breaking point. In 2030 rather, which is about 15 years from now, 14 years almost. In 2030, it is estimated that a simple computer mapped onto a robot will be able to process faster than a human brain. So a human brain will be overpowered by a robot. In 2050, there's a point called singularity. And when singularity hit, then a single computer mounted on a robot will have the computing capability of the entire human race. Where do we stand in this? And you can't change it. You have to ride this tide. You have to find a way in which to position the country and society to this change. That's where the advantage is. The third thing is nanotechnology. And I'm sure some of you are already well aware, perhaps working in industries which are working with nanotechnology. And if anyone of you is a doctor here, here's some change which is going to happen. There will be no medicines. In another 30 years, 40 years, nanotechnology will completely reshape the way medicine and treatment works. You won't, already, in about a month back, they invented nanorobots which could actually survive on human protein. So you basically need no batteries for these nanorobots. You can just plug them in, they'll eat the protein off human body, and then they will get digested like any other protein does. Nanotechnology will ensure you flawless products. Flaws will be a thing of the past. Flaws will be induced, like those jokes which come about a Japanese company sending flawed products deliberately to the United States because they were asked to. Otherwise, flaws are not going to be a part of our society anymore. Product flaws. There'll be character flaws, which nanorobots will not be able to cure. But product flaws will be a thing of the past. And the last thing is space technology. We have to eventually, in the next 75 years, we have to find more planets to live. Of course, keeping our planet livable. But we have to find more planets, and we'll have the capability to do so. And that entire space race, we are pretty good at it actually. India is doing very well in the space race. But in the next 75 years, this space race is going to be the in thing. It's going to be a huge thing. New fuels, new materials, new ways to grow crops on alien planets, like the movie Martian, is going to be a reality. So Kaushalen might find a way, right? Now, where does India stand in all this? Of course, we have some amazing things, amazing institutions. We are very good at space race. We are good at demographic dividend we talk about young people. And I think the basic problem begins as soon as a child is born, he hits malnutrition, or she hits. If she, then it hits even harder. But even a he hits a malnutrition. At the age of 4, hits the barrier of education. And education is the barrier which hits the hardest, because that kind of goes on for the next 20 years. More than 4 out of every 5 children born in India will go to a government school or a government-aided school or an extremely low-cost private school. It's only 1 or 2% of the total children of this country who will study in schools which you fancy, right? Like the big international schools and the big public schools. We have to find a way out to improve our government education system. I'll quickly tell you an example. Now, somebody has already indicated that we are running out of time. I've worked a lot in the education sector. Now, this is the story of Eastern Uttar Pradesh. We went to a school in a government school in a rural area in Budelkhand, and we came across this school which was run by a single teacher. A lot of schools are like that. I went to these children and I asked them, "Where is your master?" He was missing. "So where's your school master?" They said, "वो पान की दुकान पे है." पान की दुकान पे, पान का दुकान, गुटखा and all. So very bad, huh? Master telling teachers going to pan ka dukan, we saw this is not good. So we waited, slightly not very pleased at the answer. We waited, and this guy came. We waited for this guy never came. Half an hour passed, 1 hour passed. कहाँ गए? पान की दुकान पे गए. अच्छा तो क्या कर रहे हैं पान की दुकान पे, मतलब हुआ क्या? So then 1.5 hours passed. Finally we said, अभी तो देखना पड़ेगा ये पान की दुकान पे ठीक भी हैं कि हुआ क्या इनको, मतलब क्या कौन सा पान खा लिया इन्होंने? What did he consume? So we went to that pan ki dukan where the students knew which pan ki dukan is he. So we went to the pan ki dukan and we found the master was not consuming pan, he was selling it. So he actually would mark the attendance and go to and operate a nice, it's not just pan, many other things he would sell, but all kinds of stuff he would sell, and that was his job. Part-time job was teaching, and full-time job was selling all kinds of stuff. This is the reality of India's education system. And as I conclude, India finds itself in a place of contradictions. I told you we are one of the best countries in space technologies. The safest way to launch your satellite in space is through ISRO. Safest space travel is Indian, and yet our roads are the most unsafe. This state and many other states have women leading as chief ministers. We had a woman prime minister. When no other country, not even US, still has a woman state of head, they still don't have it. And yet we have the largest number of female feticide as a national issue. We have the second largest number of English-speaking people. We have the largest number of illiterate people. We have the largest number of mobile phone users. And yet electricity does not reach to most of the households, right? The maximum number of unelectrified villages are in India. We found ways of unification in diversification, and yet we go on a witch hunt in finding diversifications within the unity. We have the maximum number of news channels, we trust none of them. We have a parliament, it's 2 houses, so many legislators, so many great workforce, which spends most of its time in not operating. Something slightly trivial such as sports and cricket unites us, and something far more essential like food divides us. India finds itself in a place of contradictions, where challenges and opportunities are almost merging into each other. I think if this conference can separate them, identify what are the critical challenges, what are the critical opportunities, and each one of us within our organizations, our setup, our enterprises, our academic environment, our mind space, could find a way to contribute to either the opportunities which we identify or could contribute to solving the challenges which we find out, we would have achieved something long-term out of this conference today. My best wishes to all of you in doing so. Have a great time. Feel free to ask any question, and feel young. You're all the youth of this country, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Srijan. Those are some insightful and thought-provoking statistics which he has given. We have arrived at the auspicious moment of the unveiling of Dr. Kalam's last book, Advantage India. I would like to invite Mr. Srijan Pal Singh, Sri Shankar Sanyal, Dr. KVR Murthy, Mr. Kaushlendra, Mr. Sanjay Nagi, Mr. Chandradeep Mitra, Mr. Rajendran Dandapani, Mr. Anirban Chaudhary, Mr. Vaibhav Shethia, Kaul Prabir Sen Gupta, and Mr. Ravi Ranjan for the unveiling ceremony. I also request the organizers Rakesh, Vinny, Vivek and Akshay to come on the stage.
I learned every youth wants to be unique, but the world around you is doing its best day and night to make you just everybody else. I learned every youth wants to be unique, but the world around you is doing its best day and night to make you just everybody else.